2011. A late-night shift at the West Side Tavern in suburban Victoria. Daniel Saunders, a 29-year-old bartender, stepped outside to grab cash. Simple enough, right? But that night, at around midnight, something impossible happened. He pressed withdraw on a National Australia Bank ATM, and it spat out $200, then $500, then more. Despite his balance being empty, confused, he discovered he'd tapped a glitch, a loop in the system that let him withdraw unlimited funds, as long as he stayed ahead of the bank's batch processing. He thought it was a dream. He thought, maybe just a mistake. But when he woke up the next morning and saw the money, pure cash, in his wallet, he realized this was magic. Cue the 1.6 million question. What would you do if an ATM just created money? How far would you go before it all crashes down? The rise of the accidental millionaire. For 5 months, Daniel lived a lavish lifestyle paid entirely by the glitch. He chartered private jets. He threw wild parties. He paid off friends' tuition. He even rented out bars and banks to impress staff. He recalls, "I felt like a king." That same report noted he bought flights, paid for mates, even fronted bills. Anything that made him feel untouchable. But on the inside, Daniel was becoming suffocated. He was consumed by anxiety and panic attacks. Tiny terror bubbles, just waiting to burst. A shift from thrill-seeking to fear, knowing each withdrawal might be his last mistake. This was no longer fun. It was a burden. But he couldn't stop. Because once you know the glitch exists, you're playing with infinite risk. Glitch or crime. The more he withdrew, the deeper he sank. He wasn't some tech genius. He describes himself as a regular bloke. But he exploited an error in a global banking system and rode it to unimaginable heights. He said, "Anyone else would have done the same. I just got lucky with this card." The money seemed unreal, numbers on a screen, until he spent them. That illusion of free money was intoxicating. Mid-spree, he had a moment that flipped everything. A panic dream, SWAT teams at the door. That jolted him awake. The bank's system pinged, asking, "Is this you?" He answered, "Yes." And they said, "No worries." But he knew it wouldn't always be so forgiving. That's when he began to question, who am I becoming? The turning point. He eventually tried to return the money. Daniel walked into a Sydney bank, carrying $80,000 in a laundry bag, offering it back, and himself. But the bank refused to take it. That bombshell moment forced the question, what happens now? He sought counsel, therapists, friends, family. He said it himself. It took years to rebuild the person I lost. Guilt and regret had replaced excitement. And when he went to the media, full confession on TV. The bank finally acted. Authorities moved in. But only after Daniel confessed. Until then, he was flying under the radar. But not by much. Confession and fallout. The real shock came during his interview on A Current Affair. The system, the confession, the bank. Nothing happened for nearly 2 years. Police finally charged him with 111 counts of fraud and theft, after spending nearly $353,786, not the full $1.6 million, before the bank even flagged it. The courtroom was stunned. Neither judge nor prosecutors fully understood the glitch, just numbers on a screen. So, the case felt surreal. He pleaded guilty, received 1 year prison, and 18 months good behavior. The human cost. Today, Daniel is a bartender again, earning just $22 an hour. No flashy cars, no private jets. But he has something far more valuable. Perspective. He compares his addiction to a baby tiger. Start with excitement, but soon, you're feeding a beast that devours you. He says, "I'd like to experience real pleasure like when I made backyard mini golf as a kid." It's a stark contrast to intense anxiety, and a lost sense of self. He's now working with gambling addiction advocates and speaking to schools about tech addiction masquerading as chance. What we'll uncover next? So far, we've seen the glitch, the spree, the panic, and the confession. But up next, the messy moral gray area. Was it really a glitch or calculated fraud? Why the bank sat on it for 2 years, fear of reputational damage. What Daniel is doing today, redemption, recovery, and advocacy. Stick around to learn how a single ATM glitch revealed a deeper story about addiction, tech vulnerabilities, and the dangers of what feels like free money. What would you do if you found a mistake like this in your bank account? Drop a comment now, and stay tuned to uncover the rest of Daniel's journey. A bank that stayed silent. Remember when Daniel, burdened by guilt, tried to return $80,000 in cash to the bank, only to have them refuse to take it? That moment was more than shocking. It highlighted something darker. The bank knew about the glitch. They'd even called Daniel to verify transactions. Twice they asked if it was him, and when he said yes, they did nothing. For 5 months, they watched millions flow out and chose to stay silent. Why? Because if news got out, their entire system's credibility would crash. Banking trust is built on perception. If a glitch could drain $1.6 million, what message does that send? This silence gave Daniel freedom, but also sealed his fate. He realized he wasn't just stealing. He was mirroring a system that had holes, yet protected itself over people. The confession that shook the nation. By May 2011, the adrenaline had faded, but Daniel knew he couldn't keep running forever. He reached out to A Current Affair, Australia's primetime investigative show, and confessed everything on national TV. He revealed how the glitch worked, showed off some of his lavish spending, and laid bare his guilt. He expected immediate police intervention. Instead, the world watched in stunned silence, while NAB continued to sit on the story. 2 days later, investigative journalists began digging. Police quietly opened a file. Finally, the ripple effect of one man's moral reckoning set more events in motion than he could have ever imagined. Justice and the price paid. Within a week of the confession, Daniel was arrested, facing 111 counts of fraud and theft. Court documents showed he withdrew $353,786 in cash. Although the ATM glitch totaled $1.6 million, the rest remained as digital balances. The judge called the case surreal, a glitch that felt like a movie plot, not real life. He pleaded guilty, was sentenced to 12 months in prison, and received a community corrections order for another 18 months. His legal win? Apparently, jail was still preferable to uncertainty. He said in interviews that prison gave him closure, something the glitch years couldn't provide. Life after the glitch. Daniel walked out of prison a changed man. No private jets, no million-dollar balance. Now, he earns $22 an hour as a bartender. The same man who once lived wild has come back to the basics. He once said, "Walking into prison felt like finally trading in uncertain riches for real freedom." He describes his experience as chasing a baby tiger of addiction, thrilling at first, then dangerous and uncontrollable. Now, Daniel avoids gambling and thrill-seeking. His real victory? Inner peace. He speaks at school Omri Crow, warning kids about tech-fueled temptation and the illusion of easy money. A lesson on tech, trust, and temptation. Daniel's story is more than a crime. It's a cautionary tale. Let's break down the lessons. Systems are only as secure as we believe them to be. One overlooked glitch cost a bank millions and destabilized a life. Temptation thrives in digital space. When money feels virtual, moral lines blur. Addiction exploits opportunity. Daniel wasn't a hacker. He was hooked by thrill. Silence is complicit. The bank's choice to stay quiet made Daniel feel invisible and invincible. Redemption matters. He could have vanished, but he chose to pay the price and use his story for good. Final payoff. What really happened? So what really happened? At first glance, it was a bank glitch, but at its heart, it was a glitch in human judgment. A question of ethics, addiction, and accountability. If an ATM can produce money, is it still money? If no one notices, is it still theft? Daniel's story forces us to ask tough questions about value. Digital versus real. Adrenaline versus honesty. Fleeting fame versus long-term peace. The answer? True wealth isn't in the balance. It's in the sacrifice. Your turn. What would you do? Think about it. What would you do if an ATM started spitting out money? Would you stop? Or would you ride the high until the bubble popped? Daniel's choice was to confess. One broadcast changed everything, but many, faced with the same choice, might have gone underground or never faced reckoning at all. Epilogue. The dark truth revealed. We began with $1.6 million from thin air, a man blinded by money and thrill. We learned how fear and guilt grew louder than egos. We saw a system that failed to act. We watched Daniel crumble under pressure and rebuild his life on HUMILITY. The dark truth? There are no shortcuts. No glitch can buy peace, and money earned by chance can cost you everything. Because when the noise fades, only truth remains. If this story resonated with you, go ahead and subscribe. We expose the hidden side of temptation in tech. Comment below. What would you do if you found that glitch? If you like this video, you might like these too. Share this video with someone who needs a wake-up call about digital illusions. Remember, true freedom isn't what you have. It's what you're willing to walk away from. Thank you for watching. And be careful what you wish for.